Our next section of the standard to focus on is Section 4.4, which contains the requirements for the review of request tenders and contracts. To break it down, a request comes from the customer for a laboratory to do some form of work. The tender is what the laboratory provides to the customer, indicating the terms of the work, and when there is agreement, we have a contract. Request tenders and contracts are covered by Sections 4.4 and also 4284J. 4284J requires that you have a procedure in your quality manual or referenced in your quality manual to cover request tenders and contracts. 4.4 covers the requirements of that procedure. On the screen, you'll see some of the key takeaways from this topic. The laboratory must have a procedure for reviewing new work or contracts. The review must be documented. The client must be informed of any deviations from the contract. Before we talk about the actual procedure, let's focus on who your client may be. Often municipal or industrial laboratories struggle with the concept of clients. We only test samples for ourselves, or we don't have clients. Remember that sometimes we have to think outside of the box of what we traditionally view as the definition of a term. Generally, someone else utilizes our data. The question then becomes, who uses my data? Maybe the plant superintendent or the regulatory compliance officer. Once in a while, it truly comes down to we analyze the samples and then report directly to the regulatory agency. If that is the case, it certainly is a bit trickier to wrap your head around, but you are your own client at that point. Identifying who your client is will assist in developing a procedure to address how to handle new work. The procedure will ensure that the laboratory has the necessary resources, the correct methods are chosen, and that records will show that subcontracting and/or any other changes to the original contract are maintained. Contracts do not have to be formal legal documents. They may be verbal or simply an email stating that the laboratory will perform the work. It could be, actually, your chain of custody. What key things make this example on the screen okay? For our compliant example, AML is a captive laboratory for the water and wastewater plants of Municipal City. Work outside of the current scope of NPDES, drinking water regulations, and process control testing, please see the laboratory's current scope of accreditation, will be submitted in writing or via email to the technical manager. The technical manager will review the work in regard to the laboratory's current scope of accreditation, staffing, and analytical capabilities. If the work will be accepted, the technical manager, TM, will notify the requester via email and a copy saved to the TM or new work folder. If the work must be subcontracted to another laboratory, the TM will notify the collector and recommend an approved subcontracting laboratory. A non-compliant example might be when contacted about new work, the lab director will assign the work to the appropriate staff member. Here, there is no statement of the review being done or how to handle deviations from the contract itself. Common deficiencies include no policy because the laboratory doesn't feel that they have contracts, and that a client was not notified that work would be subcontracted when it was.